Like you're always carrying an invisible weight, not a bag, not a burden, a role, a silent script written long ago, etched into your identity, where your value is measured by how easy you are to deal with, how agreeable, how selfless, how silent. Be polite, be helpful, be good. You weren't asked, you were trained. From a young age, you learned that being good meant being small, that love was a reward for obedience, that to be accepted, you had to erase yourself just enough to fit the shape others needed. And so you did, over and over again. But now you're tired. Tired of being the one who always says yes. Tired of shrinking to fit into people's expectations. Tired of feeling invisible while wearing a smile. You've done everything right, haven't you? You were kind, patient, honest. You gave, you forgave. You stayed quiet to keep the peace. You bent so others wouldn't break. But what did it bring you? Not respect, not power, just exhaustion. The world does not reward the kind-hearted the way you were told. It rewards the strategic, the ones who set limits, the ones who know when to say yes and when to walk away without apology. And this is where Niccolò Machiavelli enters, not as the villain history made him out to be, but as a man who dared to say what others feared. Being good is not enough. Being effective is everything. He wasn't cruel, he was honest. He stripped away the fantasy that virtue is all it takes. And if you've lived long enough, if you've been burned by your own self-sacrifice, you know he was right. You've seen it in the boardroom, in families, in friendships. It's not the nicest people who are respected. It's the ones who set the tone, who draw lines, who don't apologize for existing. How many times have you kept quiet when someone crossed the line? How many times did you play it down, say it's okay, when it absolutely wasn't? You didn't do that because you're weak. You did it because the world taught you to fear being too much, too firm, too real. But here's the cost. The more you silence yourself, the louder others become. The more you give without boundaries, the less you are valued. And that's not an opinion. That's a pattern. You were trained to be liked, but never taught to be respected. Machiavelli understood that power is perception, that influence has more to do with presence than with purity. And as long as you're trying to be harmless, you will be seen as disposable. This doesn't mean becoming cruel. It means waking up from the lie that your worth is tied to your compliance, that the more you suppress yourself, the more you'll be loved. That's not love. That's manipulation. If you feel seen right now, if this hits somewhere deep, you're not alone. You're one of many who were raised to believe that being nice was the highest goal, that people would eventually notice your effort, reward your sacrifices, thank you for never asking for anything. But they didn't, because the world doesn't notice what doesn't make noise. And you were taught to whisper. So let's pull the curtain back. No filters, no polite self-censorship. Why do we keep trying to be good at our own expense? Because somewhere deep inside, we're still afraid. Afraid that if we stop being nice, we'll lose everything. Connection, love, acceptance. But here's the truth no one told you. You're not being loved for who you are. You're being tolerated for who you pretend to be. That's not peace, that's captivity. And it runs deeper than behavior. It's psychological conditioning. A lifetime of don't say that, it's rude, be nice, smile, let it go. Slowly, piece by piece, you became someone easy to love but hard to respect. It's time to ask yourself, what is your kindness actually costing you? Because if it's costing you your voice, your energy, your identity, that's not kindness. That's fear. Fear of being rejected. Fear of being seen. Fear of being misunderstood. And that fear wears the mask of goodness. But you don't have to wear it anymore. Because the truth is, you can be good and still be strong. You can be kind without being used. You can say no and still have a good heart. You just have to rewire what good means to you. And that's what we're doing here, together. You weren't born trying to please everyone. You were taught to, and not through lectures or lessons, but through reactions. A raised eyebrow when you said what you really thought. A cold silence after setting a boundary. Praise when you gave in. Punishment when you stood up for yourself. This didn't shape your opinions. It shaped your identity. What started as survival became a habit, then a personality, then a prison. You became the good kid, the good friend, the good partner, always smiling, always available, always accommodating. And now, years later, you can't tell the difference between who you really are and who you trained yourself to be. And the world loves this version of you because this version never disrupts, never demands, never disappoints. You give and give and give until there's almost nothing left. And when you finally break down, people call you too sensitive or dramatic because they only love the version of you that erased itself. This is the cost of being the nice one, but it's deeper than behavior. It's internal wiring, because behind that sweet smile is someone terrified of being seen as difficult. Behind that endless patience is someone scared to say enough. Behind that kindness is someone carrying a secret belief. If I stop being good, they'll stop loving me. That fear runs everything. It's the reason you stay quiet when your stomach's in knots. The reason you accept less than you deserve over and over. The reason you keep calling it understanding when it's really self-betrayal. And here's the punchline. The people you're doing all this for, they're not doing the same for you because they don't have to. You've made it too easy. You've trained them. Every time you said yes when you meant no, lesson learned. Every time you forgave too quickly, lesson learned. Every time you put yourself second, they learn your position. And once people are used to your silence, your voice becomes a threat. The moment you shift, they react because your compliance was convenient. But that's a good sign. That means the pattern is breaking. That means your real self is waking up. It's time to stop mistaking fear for empathy. It's time to stop calling your silence peace. It's time to admit that your kindness has been weaponized against you. And that brings us back to Machiavelli. Not the caricature of evil you've heard about, but the strategist who understood this brutal truth. People respond to perception, not intention. You can be the most moral, loyal, generous person in the room, but if your presence doesn't carry weight, you will be ignored. People don't respect your heart, they respect your spine. In The Prince, Machiavelli says, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." That sentence cuts. It means your goodness, your integrity, is invisible unless it comes with boundaries, with power, with the ability to say, here's what I will accept, here's what I won't. Because otherwise, you're not a person in their eyes. You're a resource, something they use when they need something and ignore when they don't. You were taught that being liked is the goal. Machiavelli teaches that being respected is survival, and respect comes from two things: clarity and consequence. If you say no and people know you mean it, that's power. If you draw a line and they know it won't be crossed without reaction, that's power, not aggression, not cruelty, just presence, just truth. Machiavelli wasn't saying to be fake. He was saying appear virtuous when needed, be strategic when necessary. That means knowing when to show your heart and when to protect it. It means being kind on your terms, not because you're scared to be anything else. He said a leader must be a fox and a lion, cunning and strong, aware and assertive. You can't just be nice, you have to be sharp. You can't just be forgiving. You have to be aware of patterns. You can't just hope people will respect you. You have to make it clear, I respect myself. You will too. So here's the turning point. You've spent your life trying to earn love through sacrifice. But love earned through silence isn't love, it's dependency. You've tried to prove your worth by being everything for everyone. But people don't respect what's always available. They respect what has standards. And if this hits home, it's because some part of you already knows this. So now comes the question, can you stop being the nice one without becoming someone cold? Can you reclaim your voice without losing your heart? Yes, but only if you stop believing the lie that you have to choose between kindness and power. You don't. You can be both. You don't need to become someone else to stop being walked on. You just need to stop abandoning yourself. That's the shift, the one that changes everything. Because people who were taught to be nice often think they only have two options: be silent and liked, or be honest and hated. But that's not the real choice. The real choice is this: will you keep being a version of yourself that survives other people? Or will you finally become the version that respects you? Let's get one thing straight. Kindness is not weakness. Compassion is not submission. But when those things come at the cost of your self-worth, they're not virtues. They're weapons. And you're the one they're turned against. So how do you stop being nice in the way that destroys you? You start by understanding this. You are not obligated to be liked. You are not responsible for everyone's comfort. You are not the emotional cleanup crew for other people's reactions. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to say no without guilt. You are allowed to exist without constantly managing everyone else's expectations. It begins with voice, not the loud kind, the honest kind, the one that says, "This bothers me. I'm not okay with that. This is my limit." You say it not because you want to argue, but because you refuse to keep lying to yourself for someone else's peace. Then comes the boundary, the invisible line that becomes your protection, your standard, your signal to the world. I will not shrink to be digestible. Respect me or leave. Next, let go of the obsession with being understood. Some people will never get you. Some don't want to. They prefer the version of you that's easy, agreeable, unthreatening, the one who doesn't rock the boat. But you weren't born to live on someone else's deck. You weren't born to be agreeable. You were born to be whole. So stop performing. Stop managing impressions. Let people think what they want. Your job isn't to be perfect, it's to be real. Because when you start showing up as yourself, truly, unapologetically, you don't just scare people. You attract the right ones. People who respect strength, who meet you where you are, who don't take your kindness for granted because they know it comes with a spine. Let's go deeper. You don't need to be cold to be powerful. You just need to be consistent. You don't need to be feared to be respected. You just need to stop over-explaining. You don't need to be selfish to prioritize yourself. You just need to stop apologizing for existing. You don't have to prove anything anymore. The right people will see your worth. The wrong ones were never your audience. And here's the thing, no one tells you. The moment you stop begging for respect is the moment people start offering it. Machiavelli wasn't advocating cruelty. He was advocating clarity. He didn't say to manipulate others. He said, understand the world you're in. Play smart. Lead yourself before you try to please anyone else. And if you take nothing else from this video, take this. You do not owe your silence to anyone. You do not owe your dignity for a sense of peace. You do not owe the world a version of yourself that keeps you small. You are not here to be manageable. You are here to be meaningful. And that means being willing to lose the approval of others to gain the approval of the one person who actually matters. You. This is your moment. You can keep playing the role, keep smiling, keep saying yes. Keep living like your worth depends on how easy you are to deal with. Or you can walk out of that performance. You can take the mask off. You can decide that kindness without boundaries is not love, it's self-erasure. and you're done with that. Because you finally understand the real you, the full, complex, bold you, isn't too much. They were just too comfortable with you being less. So stop asking the world to see you. Start seeing yourself. Start building a version of kindness that doesn't apologize for its strength. Start being the one who sets the tone, not the one who follows it. Start being the person who doesn't need permission to speak, to act, to exist. And if someone calls that selfish, let them. Because when you start to rise, when you stop shrinking, when you stop being available to everyone but yourself, you don't become cruel. You become free. And you were never meant to be anything less. If this video hit home, don't just nod and scroll. Tell me, when did you realize being nice was actually hurting you? Drop it in the comments. Someone else out there needs to hear it. And if this stirred something in you, don't stop here. This channel is about truth, about clarity, about reclaiming your voice. Subscribe. Share this with someone stuck in the same cycle. Let's stop living muted. Let's start living with presence, strength, intent. This isn't the end. This is the beginning. Stop being liked. Start being respected. And above all, respect yourself first.